Okay, hey guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the show, Timmy Foodie. Follow me on Instagram at Timmy_foodie, or if you're on YouTube already, hit subscribe, give me a share, tell your friends. That would be awesome. You can also head over to timmyfoodie.com and check out all the other great recipes that's on the website. Today, what we're going to do is do our chicken stock. Now, if you were watching the other day, yesterday this would have been, we would have done we did our little chicken salad wraps. I'm gonna today use the leftover chicken bones that if you remember, we saved them all. So I've got those in the fridge. So what I'm gonna do is pop those in this pan, and we're gonna knock up a chicken stock, which we can then turn into something. So I might do, maybe we'll do a risotto recipe or something, one of my risotto recipes. I do a really nice kind of mix, sort of paella flavors, but as a risotto, which is super tasty. So we might give that a go. But let's get the chicken stock done first. So it's really simple. We're gonna just get a little bit of olive oil. I've got the pan on the heat here. We're just gonna do pretty simple flavors really, just while that heats up. You just need a couple of carrots. These ones have been in the fridge for a few days, so they've gone a little bit squidgy, but not squidgy, but a little bit floppy. But they'll be fine for this. So it's a good way to use up any spare veggies sitting in your fridge that have maybe gone past their best, because we're just going to get a bit of flavour out of these really in the stock. Essentially, when you're making a stock, it's like you're making a big cup of tea, but with meat and veggies, basically. So the principles are pretty simple. You just get some water in a pan, stick your flavours in there, and boil it up to extract all the flavour out of the ingredients. So it's pretty straightforward. And then how you get those flavours out of it is, there's different ways you can do it. So you just have to, play around and see what works. You'd normally put this on the heat for a couple of hours maybe, strain it all out, and then if you want more concentration of flavour, once we've cooked this up and then strained all the bits out of it, you can put it back on the heat and reduce it down to concentrate the flavours, but it's up to you. It depends how flavoursome this stuff is initially, but it's normally a good way to do it. And then if you want to go even further, you can put in more of these ingredients again, do the whole process again, but using the first stage of the stock that you did. Like, I know Heston Blumenthal does that sometimes. You can see I'm just chopping these really roughly, like it doesn't need to be you don't need to really take too much care with this stuff. So I've just brought the heat onto this, and then I'm putting in these are like the bones and the bits and the skin and all this sort of stuff. So we're just going to get this in on the heat and just get that sizzling away. I like to do this just to kind of release a bit of the flavours from the chicken and get things going a bit in the pan. And that can do its thing. And then we'll just finish just roughly chopping these. Again, just random chunks is fine. It doesn't need to be anything too fancy. We'll just chop that in there as well. And then we're going to put an onion, because onion has lots of flavour. Hopefully you guys can hear me over the sizzling. Let's turn it down a touch. And so for the onion, just super roughly chopped. Doesn't need to be anything fancy or anything like that. Oh, these onions are really hard to peel. Little bastard, come on. Right. Let's just take the outer layer off. Easier. Probably, I don't know if I'd really need more than about half an onion really. So again with this, just like that, it's great. And then you can just break those apart, they'll kind of come apart, and you just chuck those in. That's probably enough onion, because we don't want any one flavour to overpower everything else. We just kind of want it you know, nicely balanced through it. So that's probably enough, and then I'll save that for something else. Pop it in the fridge, sorted. I might chuck in a bit of garlic. Probably put in 2 cloves of garlic because I like garlic and it's a really good flavour. And then I'm going to put a bit of seasoning in this as well. This is just a little salt and pepper mix that I had from the other day when I was doing my barbecue stuff. So just a little bit of salt and pepper. And then with the garlic, just smash it like that and fling it across the kitchen. And that, just break that apart and chuck it in. Check for the little central bit. It's all right, it's not green. If it's green, then don't use it. There we go. So that's probably a clove. 1 clove's enough actually, because that was quite a big clove. So and just sort of stir that around for a bit. Just doesn't need to do much. It just kind of gets everything going. And then we'll just put some water in there, bring it to a simmer, and then that's it. You just leave that for a couple of hours. So yeah, perfect. So now I'm just going to top that with water. Please excuse the beeping, annoying induction pan hob. So just put in enough water. You'll see here, it just covers all the ingredients. Back on the heat, bring that up to the boil. Just give that a little stir around. And then what I'm also going to do, because I have some fresh parsley, is take some of these out with the stalks, because we kind of want the stalks because they contain lots of really nice flavour. And then we'll just literally just do that and just take the bottom ends of it and just chuck it in there. That's going to give us some really nice flavour. You can add whatever herbs you want at this stage. You can put in some rosemary or some thyme. I like parsley like this because it's I might put a bit more in just because it's, I don't know, it's a nice flavour into this sort of stuff. So, and give it a little stir in there. And I've done a bit of salt, which is probably enough, but I might just add a bit more pepper. Again, you don't really want your chicken stock too salty. You obviously want it to be seasoned, but you don't want, yeah, if it's too salty, it's going to then, you know, it could mess up and over salt whatever you're putting this stock into at a later stage, so you can control the saltiness later on. You just want a nice little base, so that was like a nice pinch of salt, and that's probably enough. And that's it, really simple. Just let that come up to the boil. As soon as it's boiling, we're going to turn it down to a real gentle simmer and just leave that for a couple of hours. And I'll come back when we get to that stage and just show you how it looks, so you know kind of what stage, how yours should look. And then all we'll do is we'll just pour that through a sieve into another pan, and then we'll see how much liquid we've got. If we've got a good amount, I might just reduce it a little bit more, but you could essentially leave it like that and split it out into your kind of little takeaway containers, pop them in the freezer, and then you're good to go. So when you need some stock, you just take one of those out, put it in the fridge. If you do that in the morning before work, pop it in the fridge, come back, and then by that time it will have defrosted enough for you to do what you need to with it. If you're taking it straight out from the freezer, you can just put it out in the freezer, chuck it in a pan, turn the heat on, and it will just defrost itself and, you know, do its thing. So but if you plan ahead, then you can kind of skip that step. So yeah, so there we go, there's my real super simple chicken stock. We'll let that cook for a couple of hours and then we'll be back. Hey guys, right, we're back. So we've got our stock here that's been reduced down and cooking for 2 hours. As you can see, it's reduced down quite a bit from where it was. All the meat from the chicken and stuff is kind of just literally falling off the bone. So all you've got like literally the bones like that. So when you stir it, it just all kind of falls apart and stuff. So I mean, this is about perfect really. It's reduced in quantity by about 1 inch from where it was, like it's lower down by about 1 inch. That means all the flavors are more concentrated, and this is perfect. So what we'll do now is we'll just strain it into our little jug here. You can use a like a fine mesh sieve like this, or a colander. I like the finer mesh stuff because it doesn't let any of the bits through. So you know, but it's up to you. Whatever you have, if you've just got a colander, it's absolutely fine. So so essentially, you could let it cool down a little bit if you want to, but it's okay like this. Just be careful when you're pouring it. I might pour it over this thing. You know, maybe here you'll be able to see a bit better. Yeah. So just be careful when you're doing this. So just hold over the thing and just pour through. Now it's probably better to have a slightly bigger bowl than this because the liquid can spill out of the edges, but I've started now, so I've committed to this, but we'll be fine. You can do it in stages just to let it kind of drip through, because it won't go through that quickly if some of the chunks go through. So you can just help the liquid through like this. And yeah, that's kind of it really. So as you can see, it's caught all the chunks and bits and bobs that we don't want in there, so it's given us a nice clear stock. Now, some people won't want the fat in there, but you could try and skim it off as you're cooking, but there's not a huge amount in this because it's chicken anyway. I'll just drop that all in there now, and that can just drip in there. So that'll just drip through any last bits of kind of liquid through it. And you can just put that to one side and just let that sit for, I don't know, half an hour, and just let that finish dripping through. And then this stuff, I mean, you've got all the flavour you can out of it, so you'll have to just throw that away. But just let that cool down before you put it in the bin. If you put hot stuff in your bin, it can promote bacteria growth a lot quicker because of the heat, and that will mean your bin will smell. So just let that do its thing. And that's basically it. I mean, if I just, hang on 1 second, I'll just show you this. Let me just pop this here for a minute. So this is kind of what you end up with. You've got this beautiful kind of clear stock. Now, what you can do is you can put that in the fridge. Once it's cooled down a bit, pop it in the fridge. And then what will happen is, because of the fats in it will naturally rise, you'll get a thin layer of fat across it once it cooled down completely in the fridge. And then what you can do, if you don't want that fat in your stock, once it's completely set and solidified, that the top part, just scrape that off with a spoon into a little bowl, and that pulls all the fat out of the stock because it's sitting on top. So you've got essentially, the stock will go into like a kind of jelly-like consistency, and the top will just be this thin layer of fat. So scrape that all off, put it in a bowl, and then that fat in that bowl, you can actually use that to fry off stuff with. So if you're making, let's say if you're doing like a chicken risotto or something like that, when you fry off your onions at the beginning, we'll use some of that fat, and that puts a really beautiful flavour in the base of the dish. So when I cook this risotto in a couple of days, I'm going to be using this stock, but we'll also use that fat, and I'll actually show you what I mean when we get to that stage, which will be a video in the next couple of days. So check back soon, and you'll see what I do with that. In the meantime, this is, well, that dripped a bit more liquid. Let me just pour that all back through. Scrape this out. So I'm just going to put this aside, let that finish dripping through. And that's our stock. Let everything cool down, put this jug in the fridge. You don't really need to cover it because the fat will just form its own natural seal over it anyway, so that's fine. And then this stuff we'll just throw away when we get to that bit. So yeah, so there we go. So that's our super simple chicken stock. And as you can see, I mean, it doesn't get much simpler. You just chuck everything in, add the water, boil it down, and there you go. It's pretty simple. And if you're doing it on a weekend, like, you know, if you do my roast chicken thing in our, you know, cast iron pan that we did yesterday or in the last video, you make a big batch of that up on a, you know, on the Saturday, and then you can make this stock, you know, straight away afterwards once you've stripped all the meat off with the bones. Do what I've just done here, and then boom, it's all done. It's probably an afternoon's worth of faffing in the kitchen, but you can go off and do stuff around the house and do your chores or whatever, and then that gives you a really beautiful stock to use throughout the week, and obviously loads of beautiful chicken to use in your wraps like we did a few days ago, or you know, using that chicken to do a stir fry or whatever you want to do with it. We might do a chicken fried rice in a few days with what's left over from that, so we'll get to that. So yeah, that's our beautiful chicken stock recipe. That's a bit hot anyway. Yeah, so that's our beautiful chicken stock recipe. Bloody hell. Super simple, really good to use and not waste any ingredients as well, so it just gets you a beautiful thing out of stuff that you'd otherwise have just thrown away. And that sort of stock like that would cost you probably $15 over here in Australia to buy that much stock in one of those pouches of that fancy stock, and this is going to be a lot better than that stuff anyway. So yeah, and that's all like all organic, free range chicken, organic carrots, so lots of beautiful flavour in there. So there we go, so that's our chicken stock. Check back in soon. We'll do our what we've got coming up. We'll do a little risotto using that chicken stock. That'll be in a few days. That's going to be cool. And then I've got a brisket that I'm going to do probably tomorrow, so that's probably going to be the next video, and then we'll do our risotto the next day. So check back soon for our delicious brisket recipe. And you're going to need a bit of time to cook this one because it's a big bit of meat and you've got to slow cook it anyway, so that's probably another weekend adventure for you to go on with me. So cheers for tuning in everyone, and we'll be back soon.